Hi everybody, and welcome to Joseph Talk Sport. Okay, now as you can see, I'm not Joseph. Okay, that's my son. Now, he's asked me to do a video, okay, of who are my six all-time favourite wrestling superstars of all time. Now, obviously, I'm a lot older than Joseph. Now, my son Joseph, this is his channel. Okay, now he's 10 years old. Okay, now he's going to do the same video. Okay, and we're basically a comparison. Now, when I was growing up, I was born back in 1978. Okay, so my heroes growing up, I remember the likes of the giant haystacks, Earthquake, Typhoon, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Bret the Hitman Hart, the British Bulldog. All these big famous guys could carry on going. Andre the Giant, absolute legend. So when he asked me to do the top six, I found it really hard. It was so difficult to do my top six wrestlers, because there's people that I could easily take out and swap it around, because it was so difficult. When I was going through all them names, I was thinking, who do I put in? Who can I leave out, and who can I condone leaving out? It's like I've left out Bret Hart, and I feel so bad for leaving Bret Hart out. He was an absolute legend. I've left out Triple H, another great wrestler. There's so many big names I left out, and you're thinking, God, if I ever bumped into these, how am I going to condone it? But I managed to come up with a top six. Okay, and this is my top six, and basically all of them are world champions. Okay, so this is my personal top six, and like I say, it was really difficult to do this, so I'm going to go in reverse order from number six, and I'm going to go all the way up to number one. Okay, and the top three was really difficult. So at number six, I've got the icon Sting. Okay, now he may have been able to go higher than sixth. Okay, but the problem is he's basically spent his entire career in WCW and TNA. Okay, and probably spent a year in WWE. And my problem for him was he was a great wrestler. He was the guy that would get the crowd going. A bit like Hulk Hogan. Everybody loved Sting. But he never went to WWE until right at the end of his career, when he was past it, basically. So he's never able to really prove himself against the best. Because if you think about the people that went to WCW, they did it at the end of their career. They weren't doing it when they were in their prime, and he stayed there, and that shows a lot of character for him at the end of the day, that he wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it for the money. It's not hide from it. You don't go into wrestling and face getting beaten up or getting in a scrap every week unless you're getting good do-re me at the end of the day. And that's why I've got to put Sting at six. Because I love Sting. I think it was brilliant all the way through his career. Now, it's going to start getting tough. Because at number five, I put Shawn Michaels. I put the Heartbreak Kid at number five. Okay. Now, Shawn Michaels was a great wrestler. In my personal view, if he never had his back issues, Okay, and he never had his addiction issues, which he did have, due to alcohol. He may have got further up. But the good thing about Shawn Michaels was he was able to play the good guy, but he was also able to play the bad guy. Okay, he was able to do both cuts. Okay, which is rare for a wrestler actually able to do both sides of it. Okay, and a bit like with Ric Flair. Okay, he could fight anybody. Didn't matter. He could fight them all. Probably one of the most technical wrestlers in history. Okay, and that's why I've got Shawn Michaels in my top 5. Now at number 4, I've got my favourite wrestler, my all-time favourite wrestler. Okay, and this is who I'd also have as having the best entrance music as well, which is the Undertaker. I love the Undertaker. I think it was my personal view. I'd have him as number 1, but I've got to think of who the greatest star of all time at the end of the day. And the main reason I have him at number 4, I don't think he won enough titles. Okay, and that's the problem. He had a great gimmick. He was able to take anybody for a good scrap. He has some of the greatest fights of all time. If you take, for instance, when he fought Mankind on Mick Foley and threw him off the top. You know, the fight against Mick Foley, yet again, out the back, when they were throwing each other in the boiler room and everything. Then you got the WrestleMania bout that he had against against Shane McMahon, the Hell in the Cell. Then you got the Hell in the Cell yet again at WrestleMania against Triple H. You know, he has some of the greatest fights of all time. How could you not have the Undertaker in the top 6? You know, and with his longevity. So he's my pick for number 4. Now the top 3, this is where it gets difficult. And most people, I would suggest, would have these in their top 3. The argument would be is how you put them. Okay, that's where the argument is. Now, at number 3, I've got Stone Cold Steve Austin. Okay. And I've got no real reason for putting him at 3. I think he's probably the greatest modern day wrestler. Okay, especially in the Attitude Era. Okay, for what he achieved. At number 2, I've got the best bad guy of all time. Okay, whether he was a bad person in real life, don't know, because I never met him at the end of the day, which is Ric Flair. You know, how can you not have Ric Flair in the top 3? You've got to. You know, if you know, he's my type of person. You know, because I've always said to my kids at the end of the day, playing fair gets you nowhere in life. Okay, if you want to achieve anything and get to the top, you got to play a bit dirty. And did Ric Flair do that? Absolutely, every damn week. You know, and that's why you got to love Ric Flair at the end of the day. You know, I can't see there ever being anybody that be able to do what Ric Flair did at the end of the day. And at number 1, I got Hulk Hogan. Because the reality is, even though obviously he sadly passed away last year, you can't argue with what he achieved. Because the argument is, and I know that you have, you know, the likes of Roman Reigns saying, we saved WWE, you know, and everything. There'd be no WWE if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. He's the one that created Survivor Series at the end of the day, or WrestleMania. There would be no wrestlers earning the big bucks if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. You know, for instance, when he goes and does the slam on Andre the Giant at, what was it, WrestleMania 2 or whichever WrestleMania it was at the end of the day. You know, if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan doing what he did as it was in WWF, creating these pay-per-views, then doing the same thing and going to WCW, yes, becoming the bad guy, which is probably the best thing for him, okay, then going to TNA, then coming back to WWE, and still pretty much being the top dog. How can you not have Hulk Hogan is probably the greatest of all time? I wouldn't say he was the best wrestler. You could probably argue that between Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. I would argue. You also wouldn't say that he was the best talker of all time. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin was an absolutely fantastic talker. But what Hulk Hogan was, he was a mixture of that, and he was able to sell. And he was able to get bums and seats. And if you can sell, you're going to make money and you're going to be successful. And it's like Bobby the Brain Heenan said, I saw a video that he did where he said that Gorilla Monsoon said, if you're not in it for money, you're kidding yourself, because the only people that are successful in wrestling are the people who are in it for money, and they're the workers. And it was words to that effect at the end of the day. And when Bobby the Brain Heenan repeated that, he was right. And that goes classic for Hulk Hogan. So let us know what you think. If you think that I'm wrong anyway, let us know in the comments down below. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you again a bit later.